Hello, everyone. This is Parrish Alford with the Daily Journal. I'm joined by Logan Lowery, our Mississippi State writer. This is Double Coverage, a production of the Daily Journal. We're going to talk all things Mississippi State and Ole Miss for the next half hour or so. We're glad you've chosen to click in with us today, and lots to talk about. Logan, we're hitting that overlap season. Yesterday was signing day. We had home basketball games as well. Baseball is just days away, opening day, 1 week, in 1 week, next Friday, opening day for everyone. So it's that time of year, lots going on. I know yesterday I got up, Logan, about 5:30 in the morning. I did my morning stuff. I went to the gym. I came back and it was pretty much nonstop until about 10 o'clock. But I did not have an 8 o'clock tip, and I did not have an overtime game. So I know you got me beat on the hours count.
Yeah, and you beat me up by 15 minutes. I got up at 5:45 yesterday morning, and Parrish, you know, from being on the road with me at some of those SEC events, I am not a morning person whatsoever. So to drag my carcass out of bed at 5:45 was quite the undertaking. But was able to get that done. And like I said, we were talking before we started recording here. I think you had a 16-hour day. I had an 18-hour day basketball game along with the overtime. But it was a long day. But hey, we both survived.
We did survive, and that's what we do, man. We can handle this overlap season, so not a big deal. Hey, let's start with football, with signing day. I'll start with the Ole Miss class. I like, Logan. I like the early signing day in December and then the late period here in February, because it just makes this day, and this does come at a time when a lot of other things are going on, makes this day a little less, a little anticlimactic, so to speak. Now, it wasn't that way exactly for the Rebels yesterday. They closed strong. Matt Luke was able to check the boxes and get the help he needed in the positions he wanted defensively, but he didn't really know how much help he was going to get until just the last hours of recruiting. We'll touch on that here in a bit, but I like the way that it is split up now. Because of that, you're able to do a little bit more advanced work. You have an idea what's coming. With Jerrion Ealy, the five-star running back from Jackson Prep, you had an idea that Ole Miss was gaining momentum with him. Ultimately, they were able to sign him yesterday. His press conference there at Jackson Prep at about 11:15 in the morning on ESPN2. So that was big news for Ole Miss, for Ealy to officially sign papers and come on board. But it was the news after that that really was surprising in a good way for Ole Miss, when the Rebels were able to gain the signature of Ladarius Cox, a three-star defensive tackle from Mobile, who had been committed to Tennessee for a long time, and also linebacker Lakia Henry, the #1 inside linebacker at the junior college level, #3 prospect overall. Luke had said after the December press conference that he really wanted to get more defensive help in the spring. He wanted to get a defensive lineman. He wanted to get a linebacker, and he got help at those positions. Cox is a guy at 6'5" and 312 that they believe will be able to come in time and clog the middle and be hard to block. They earlier in the late period, they gained a commitment from Brandon Mack, a 240-pound defensive end out of Montgomery. So that was the other position that Luke wanted help. Said he wanted to get a pass rusher. He believes Mack fits that bill. And then Henry coming on board. I mean, the linebackers, the weakness there for Ole Miss has been well documented. And to gain a junior college guy of that caliber, who they believe will come in and make an immediate impact, is a big deal. And his recruiting seemed to be the most drama of the day, because for so many days leading up to signing day, it was thought that Lakia Henry would sign with Arkansas, but the Rebels were able to get him away from there. A lot of drama on message boards about that. It'll make that second week of the regular season pretty exciting, I would think, at least interesting on Twitter when Arkansas visits. in what will be an early SEC game for both teams. Arkansas coming to Oxford next year. But what Matt Luke had to say about Henry and his recruiting was that Mike McIntyre, the new defensive coordinator, really kind of resonated with Henry. And when he started talking about the 3-4 that he wants to run at Ole Miss, and how he said, well, this is basically the Chicago Bears defense, and this is how you're going to fit in that defense, and started showing cut-ups of that defense to Henry. Luke said a bond was made there, and he really thinks that helped turn things the Rebels' way there in Henry's recruitment. Same concept on the offensive side with John Rice Plumlee, the Oak Grove quarterback, a 4-star prospect, a long-time Georgia commit until Georgia coach Kirby Smart asked Plumlee to basically take a blue shirt. Logan, I had to go to the recruiting dictionary, had to Google up blue shirt and see what that was all about. But as I learned, a blue shirt is one who comes in a little bit later, doesn't report in the summer. They had asked Plumlee to report for the start of fall classes, and he would have gone on scholarship at that time. But Kirby Smart would have been able to count that number toward next year's class. These coaches have all different ways that they juggle the numbers. Well, after that, Plumlee reopened his recruitment. I believe, did he visit Mississippi State? Do you know?
He did. Mississippi State showed some interest in him a little bit. I'm not sure if they, liked him at the quarterback position or what position they were actually recruiting him for, but he did take a visit to Mississippi State in early December, if I remember correctly.
Well, I know there was interest with him for State as well as Auburn and Florida State. But again, at the end, what he said in interviews and what Luke reiterated on Wednesday was that Plumlee really liked what he heard from new offensive coordinator Rich Rodriguez and where he would fit in the Rodriguez offense. Now, Logan, these things change on the fly. Right now, John Rice Plumlee is a quarterback. He's coming in as a quarterback. Ole Miss will have 4 scholarship quarterbacks next year, and every one of them will be a freshman. Now, the starter, Matt Corral, will be a redshirt freshman, and based on the NCAA's rule change last year, of course, he was able to play in 4 games, which was great for him and great for Ole Miss. And they got to look at Matt Corral under the gun, so to speak, and liked what they saw. He is the starter going in, but after that, it's going to be freshman Grant Tisdale, freshman John Rice Plumlee, and freshman Kincaid Dent, all competing for playing time behind Corral. And with those 4 quarterbacks, 3 of them are 4-star recruits. That would be Corral, Tisdale, and Plumlee, and Dent being a 3-star prospect. A lot of people at this stage of the game are quick to downplay whatever contributions might be made from Kincaid Dent. He's not the runner that the others are, but I would say, Logan, that when you have 4 guys like that and 3 of them are the same, sometimes it helps to be different. And Kincaid Dent is a tall 6'5" drop back passer, pocket passer. Needs to add some weight, needs some time in the strength and conditioning program for sure. But 4 quarterbacks, that's a lot. That's a lot of snaps to try to divide and keep people happy. And if things go south with anybody, if Plumlee changes positions, if he doesn't like his place in the race as this progresses, if someone leaves, I wouldn't be surprised to see Kincaid Dent really rise up in significance there, because like I said, when everybody's the same, sometimes being different is a good thing. But the Rebels were able to check the boxes defensively, get the help that they needed in all of those positions, the pass rusher, the run stopper, and then the linebacker. And, of course, Jerrion Ealy. Now, the big question is, will he ever play college football? That would have been a question no matter where he signed. He is a highly rated Major League Baseball prospect, a first-round draft possibility. I've had someone close to his situation tell me that if he does go in the first round, there's virtually no chance that he would strike a college football deal in any way. I know that talk is out there as well. Could he have a situation where he played football for a year? Could there be a football and baseball thing? I know Ole Miss will explore every option to try and get him to campus. If they can, he will be a huge impact offensively. Just excellent speed, quickness, hands out of the backfield, a running back, a slot receiver, lots of different ways that Jerrion Ely can be used. So all in all, there was not a big buzz for this Ole Miss signing class after the early signing period, but that changed yesterday. In addition to these late additions, they were able to hang on to Jonathan Mingo as well, a very physical receiver out of Brandon, and adding more talent at that position as they lose A.J. Brown, D.K. Metcalf, and DeMarcus Lodge to the draft. So that's signing day at Ole Miss. Logan, what's the vibe at State?
Yeah, there really wasn't a whole lot of surprises looking at State's signing class yesterday. Kind of everything fell into place like I thought it would going into the day. Mississippi State signed 8 players yesterday. 5 of those were previously committed to Mississippi State, kind of long time. They've been committed to Mississippi State for over 2 months, all of them. And, just really, the only surprise, I guess you could say, go with State's signing day was just the fact that they picked up a graduate transfer punter from South Alabama, a guy that Joey Jones coached at South Alabama. Joey Jones is Mississippi State's special teams coordinator right now. Picked him up. He's got 1 year of eligibility. He's a black left-footed kicker, Parrish, or left-footed punter, and you just don't see that a whole lot, in college football. And
I bet he's a country boy. Out of South Alabama came a country boy. That's what he is.
Well, he's actually out of Milton, Florida, but I guess by way of South Alabama. But he's going to give Mississippi State another option there at punter. Obviously, Tucker Day will be back as well. Cody Schexnayder will be back. So State's going to have some competition at punter for next year. But this is a guy that actually kicked against Mississippi State. In that win a couple of years ago when South Alabama came in and beat Mississippi State. But I guess the biggest pickup State got yesterday was obviously getting 4-star defensive tackle Nathan Pickering. He's a guy that committed to Mississippi State last summer. There was all sorts of schools after him. Alabama, he could have pretty much had his choice of any school that he wanted to go to. And, he took a few visits. That's why he didn't end up signing in December. Actually regretted not signing in December because, you just get so bombarded during the month of January. He ended up canceling, I think, a couple of his last visits and just decided to stick with Mississippi State. And, State's glad to have him. Obviously Mississippi State's got a lot of talented defensive tackles, but they're going to have to start replacing some of those defensive tackles now. And Nathan Pickering is a huge pickup for them. They needed some cornerbacks. That's where Mississippi State really got hit hard between the December signing period and now. They had a couple of cornerbacks. One cornerback committed to Arkansas during the early signing period, flipped to Arkansas on signing day. There was another guy out of South Alabama that they were trying to get around that Mobile area. He ended up decommitting from Mississippi State during the month of January and signed with Oregon yesterday. So Mississippi State lost a couple of cornerbacks that they were counting on in this class, and were able to pick up a couple of them yesterday. Martin Emerson out of the Miami area, or out of Pensacola, Florida. Miami was heavily involved in his recruitment. Mississippi State was able to kind of stave away the Hurricanes and sign Martin Emerson. They got a safety out of Montgomery, Colin Duncan, yesterday. They also picked up a commitment and signature from Dylan Lawrence out of George County, Mississippi. They really don't know where they're going to play him. They kind of list him as a cornerback. He's 6'4", Parrish, 6'4", 190 pounds. So they're really not sure where they're going to put him. They kind of signed him as an athlete, picked him up on signing day. So we'll have to kind of see where they plug him. Another pick
in, man, 6'4", 190.
Yeah. Good size. They also signed Brandon Cunningham, who was a former Miami commitment. They signed him as an offensive tackle. He's out of the St. Martin down there on the coast, 6'4", 305 kid. Really needed another offensive lineman. They picked up 5-star offensive lineman Charles Cross early on in the early signing period. He's already on campus for Mississippi State. So their 5-star was already on campus. So that's going to help Mississippi State in spring ball and moving forward. But Brandon Cunningham picked him up yesterday. And, they also picked up a former Ole Miss signee, Ole Miss commitment, Javante Payton, a wide receiver name you're probably familiar with. He ended up didn't qualify at Ole Miss, ended up at Northwest Community College, committed to Ole Miss again after he's previously signed with them, decommitted, and Mississippi State ends up getting him. I know they wanted Jonathan Mingo to go along with him. He stuck with his commitment to Ole Miss, but Mississippi State does get Javonte Payton, so that'll help a little bit with the receiving numbers. One recruit that's really not being talked about a whole lot in this Mississippi State class is former Michigan running back Kareem Walker. He was a top 5 running back in the country. I think Rivals even had him as the #1 running back in the country coming out of high school. He plays as a freshman. I think he played in 6 games as a freshman at Michigan in 2017. Transfers out, ends up at a junior college out in Kansas. Mississippi State is able to sign him. So he's a 6 foot, 210-pound back. That's going to help Mississippi State. They obviously lost Aris Williams and Dontavian Lee out of this year's class, and it's going to kind of help bridge that gap. You're still going to have Colin Houston back, but this is going to help, Mississippi State kind of bridge that gap with the running back numbers as well. But, that's kind of where they were, as far as signing day yesterday. Not a whole lot of surprises. They signed 14 players in December. They signed 8 yesterday. Like I said, 5 were already committed. They added 3 more names to that list, and Mississippi State ends up with the number 24 class in the country. Not a whole lot of signing day drama with that, and I think Joe Moorhead's pretty pleased with what he was able to get done, especially in the early part of the signing period.
All right, shifting gears, let's talk basketball a little bit. Logan, I was driving home last night after my 6 o'clock tip. Listened a lot to State and LSU. They had the 8 o'clock game, and the whole time I'm driving, even into the second half, it sounds like State's in control, not pulling away, but 6 points, 8 points, 6, 7, 8, just kind of hovering around that in terms of a lead. And I get home and I don't immediately turn on the game. And when I do, it's like a 1-point game or it's tied, and they're just right there again, and they end up in overtime. What happened to State at the end of regulation?
Well, they just missed a few shots, missed a couple of free throws here. Just LSU just kind of was chipping away. State had built a 10-point lead there in the second half, and LSU just kind of kept chipping away. Mississippi State just could not stop Tremont Waters. They didn't stop him last year when they played him. They didn't stop him this year when they played. And then, obviously, I don't know if you've seen him yet, Naz Reid from LSU, Parrish. That guy, how he's a teenager listed as a freshman, that does not look like a teenager at all. He ends up with 29 points last night, and he was really the key for LSU in overtime. I thought he should have fouled out. He had 4. Had 4 fouls at the end of regulation. The final few seconds of regulation, he went over the back of a Mississippi State player for a rebound. Was not called, and that would have fouled him out of the game and sent Mississippi State to the free throw line there at the end of regulation. That's where I thought the game should have been won for Mississippi State. They didn't, the call didn't happen. They came up huge for LSU during the overtime period. He had scored 6 points in the final minute of that overtime. He had an and one, hit the free throw with that, and then with the shot clock running down, he hits a 3-pointer that he shoots it. It hits the front of the rim, bounces high off the rim, and then just goes through, and that gives LSU a 4-point lead with like 12 seconds left to go in the game. There's no on a 3-point attempt, so
that wasn't the play that Will Wade, the LSU coach, had drawn up. I'm sure it looked like that, and I saw that. That's why it comes to mind that Reed was very uncomfortable with the ball where he was at that point, and he just had to shoot it. Shot clock was running down. There were 11 or 12 seconds left after, but the shot clock was getting down there. He had to shoot it. He was wide open, and Logan, when the ball hits the rim like that, for me, I don't get that kind of bounce.
Exactly. It's been a while since I shot a 3, but back in my days when I was playing, I never got rolls like that. But Naz Reid, I was very impressed with him last night. I mean, that's a future pro right there, and he may be a future pro by the time next year rolls around. I think he's that good. He's got size. Like I said, he looks like a grown man. How that guy's a freshman, I have no idea. But very impressed with Naz Reid. Very impressed with Tremont Waters. They've got another big guy, Big B Williams, that had a double-double last night. But looking at the things that Mississippi State did, I was very impressed, with their overall game plan. I don't think State played a bad game. whatsoever. If there's a player, if there's a guard in the SEC, maybe even nationally, that's played better than Quindary Weatherspoon has over the last 6 games, I'd like to see him, because Quindary Weatherspoon's been very, very good. 27 points again last night. Reggie Perry comes in, adds another double-double. He actually made his 2nd straight start last night, and 2nd double-double in the last 3 games, 19 points, 10 rebounds for Reggie Perry. Kind of a strange thing that's been happening, and it's happened 3 times now, Parrish. It happened once when Ole Miss came to Starkville about a month ago. It happened during the Auburn game when they came to Starkville a few weeks ago, and then it happened again last night. Robert Woodard doesn't play much in the second half. I mean, Robert Woodard in the first half for Mississippi State scores 8 points, has 2 blocks, makes 2 2 3-pointers. He was 3 for 4 from the field. 2 of them were threes. And then all of a sudden, he didn't play but 2 minutes in the second half. In those other games, he just played a minute or 2 in the second half. I don't know. And Ben Howland's come in after each of those games and said, he just made a mistake. He just, mismanaged the minutes, and for whatever reason, he doesn't get Robert Woodard into the ball game. He was playing well. Same thing with Tyson Carter last night. Tyson Carter scores 12 points in the first half and then only plays 5 minutes the rest of the way in the second half and overtime. I don't know. It's not like Mississippi State has a huge bench. They only play about 8 players. So there's only 3 players on the bench over there. And somehow Ben Howland is mismanaging the minutes and not getting those guys on the court for enough minutes in the second half of the ball game. So I'll have to kind of keep an eye on that moving forward. Lamar Peters goes scoreless last night, and I think that really hurt Mississippi State. He's been dealing with a wrist injury. He hurt that wrist during the Alabama game. So this is his, I guess, second full game playing with that hurt wrist. But Ben Howland said it's really affected his shooting. He's not able to practice a whole lot on his shot, not shooting a whole lot in the ball game. Only shot 4 times last night, missed all of them. 3 of those were 3-pointers. So they've got to get more production. They got to get Lamar Peters healthy at point guard, because they really need some points out of him offensively.
Ole Miss picked up a 75-71 win over Texas A&M last night at the Pavilion. The Rebels had lost 4 straight and 5 out of 6. And Logan, they broke that losing streak, which was the most important thing. But they just didn't really look good doing it. It was not, it was not the kind of game that you leave and think, man, problems are solved and everything's just a lot better moving forward. Texas A&M went into that game ranked like number 335 in 3-point field goal accuracy, and they lit up the Rebels. Brandon Mahan hit 4 for 4 from 3-point range against Tennessee. He hits his first 6 against Ole Miss. And Texas A&M, after a slow start, I think they hit only 3 of their first 9 shots, really just kind of poured it on. They shot like 51% in the first half. And in the early minutes of the second half, as they were building a 9-point lead, they were shooting about 58%. And then all of a sudden, Ole Miss began to recapture some defensive energy that they began the game with. They really did start out in a good way. Ole Miss had leads of 19-6 and 27-14 in the first half, but struggled to keep the lead at halftime, led just 37-36. Then they fall behind. But Ole Miss was able to play better defensively, guard harder, and got some key rebounds at key times. Still out-rebounded by 4 for the game, but got some nice buckets. Got a little more play on the glass out of Dominique Olejniczak than they had. Some physical play, a big block shot late in the game. And there was one rebound where he just came charging in on the offensive glass and took the rebound away from somebody. I hadn't seen that from him. And, certainly he didn't do that enough, but maybe that's a sign that things are changing there. They certainly need all the help they can get there on the glass, but they were able to defend better at the end of the game. A&M missed 10 of its last 13 shots. That shooting percentage in the second half dropped into the upper 30s after being almost 60 for a period of time. But even during that stretch, you could see Ole Miss leaving a guy open and A&M not finding him. You could see some things that the Rebels could be doing better. Just a lot of improvement that they still need to make there. And yes, they were able to win the game, which is the most important thing, but still a lot of work for them to do. There was a lot of NCAA tournament hype for this team, and the resume is still strong. but we are at the midway point now, Logan, of the SEC season. Ole Miss is 5-4. If you're figuring that the record needs to be 11-7, okay, to have a good shot at an at-large bid, I'm not sure 10-8 is going to get you there. 10-8 in the SEC this year might leave you with some really good numbers. You might have some nice quality wins along the way, but at some point there's going to be a cap on how many SEC teams get into the NCAA tournament. I'm not sure 10-8 for Ole Miss is going to make that happen for the Rebels, but 11-7 might. If the Rebels are going to get to 11-7, they got to go 6-3 on the back nine. You know, they've already shown that they can be beaten at home. Well, they were unable to gain even a split with LSU and Mississippi State, which is something they really needed to have happen. Dropped both of those home games. Well, they've got home games left on the schedule, but two of them are two of the best teams in the league in Tennessee and Kentucky. You know, if you can win them, that's great. You know, you're going to really solidify yourself, but it's going to be a big challenge for a team that's not getting as much production in the post as it needs. So those two games still coming on your home schedule. You know, if you're trying to go 6-3, you're going to have to get some things done on the road. And, you know, places like Georgia this Saturday, you know, yeah, it's not Tennessee, it's not Kentucky, but, you know, it's a team that can beat you if you're not playing your best, even though the Bulldogs are now 10-12. You know, they have got an impressive win over Texas. They've done some good things this year. It's certainly not a place that Ole Miss can go Saturday at noon and just roll out the balls and expect to be successful. So lots of work to do for Ole Miss. Kermit Davis reminded us after the Mississippi State game that this is still a first-year coaching staff and a rebuilding team. And yes, you get a little bit of a pass with that. I agree. There's lots of growth still to happen for this team next year. And, you know, when Davis gets his own players in and things like that. But look, sometimes expectations change on the fly, and expectations for this team changed the week they won against Auburn and Mississippi State, top 15 opponents in the same week. So anyway, this team can still get a lot done this year with this group of guys, but they're going to have to answer some questions defensively and on the glass. Took a little step with that last night against the Aggies, but need to take other steps as well. Folks, baseball, we'll get to it next week, opening day, a week from Friday. And we will be with you every step of the way. We thank you for clicking in with us today. Come back and join us next week.